Hey guys, BioLizard1 here. So, on Dueling Network I have seen a lot of people playing Infernoids lately. And this is kind of a small video in where I tell that I think that Infernoids are not going to be tier 1 yet. This might change after the Megatons comes out, because I assume that Konami is not going to put on a new ban list really soon, because they still need to sell all the stuff that is in the Megatons, which includes sets from Duelist Alliance up to, what is it, Crossed Souls, or just maybe not Crossed Souls, but the set before. So in order for them to sell these cards, they might want to have one big tournament or maybe two big tournaments in a format where cards from those sets can be used, so that people that pick up these Megatons can still use the cards for those tournaments. Because if they immediately after Worlds have been passed this weekend, if they would introduce a new ban list already, saying that Construct goes to 1, Trevor goes to 0, I'm just saying things from the top of my head, then people will not be so happy to buy those tins, and this will record in less sales, and that's something they want to avoid. So as long as those decks are still out, I think Infernoids will still be a good tier 2 deck, maybe tier 1 when played by a really good player, but for now let's say that the majority of people will not be able to top with Infernoids. But the reason I think that people are starting to run Infernoids more and more is because Infernoid Decatron just came out. And for the people that don't know what Infernoid Decatron does, when this card is normal or special summoned, you can send one Infernoid monster from your deck to the graveyard, except an Infernoid Decatron, so basically this card substitutes for all other Infernoid monsters you have in your deck. And if you do increase this card's level by the level of the send monster. If you do that, this card's name becomes that monster and replace this effect with the monster original effect. So this card is really good, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to change the Infernoid game completely. By this I mean a lot of variants that have been published on the internet so far have been variants of using Lightsworn engines, and I have the impression that people are starting to drop that Lightsworn engine in order to run Infernoid Decatron only in combination with Reasoning, and therefore I think that this deck is way too slow. What I'm trying to say is, when you had the Lightsworn engine, you could run 2 Charge of the Light Brigade, which basically when you get a Raiden is a mill 7, because first you mill 3 at the cost of Charge of the Light Brigade, you activate Raiden's effect for 2, and in the end phase you go 2 again. So basically that's a mill 7. But when you're just running Decatron and Reasoning, nowadays people will always be calling 1 because they don't want to face Decatron, and that's kind of strange in my opinion, which I will explain later. But a lot of people will be playing, will be saying 1, so in order that when you get Reasoning off, Decatron will be sent to the graveyard and you'll be milling quite a decent amount of your deck, but this requires you to have Reasoning in your hand or draw it. And I don't like it that much that you have to rely on 1 card in order to get your deck milled. I'd like the deck faces consistency issues, and the Lightsworn engine kind of fixed that because it was allowing you to mill a lot of cards lately. So this deck can really be tier 1 once we get Monster Gate at 3 in my opinion, because then you would be able to summon an Infernoid Decatron, use its effect to send a card, then go Monster Gate, and will be guaranteed to get that second Decatron off on the field. And this guarantee makes the deck so much better, because with Reasoning your opponent will most likely call 1 and you won't be able to get off Infernoid Decatron's effect, because it will simply be sent to the graveyard. So what the deck lacks at the moment is the speed, and this is kind of solved by the fact that Charge of the Light Brigade is at 2. So what I would suggest to all the people that want to play Infernoids right now is use Infernoid Decatron as a side card, because all of the time your opponent is going to call 1, and when you just only have a Lightsworn engine in your deck, you'll be guaranteed to get Raiden or Lumina off. So that's just really great. And then game 2, when they don't expect you to have Infernoid Decatron, side him in, and then they'll start calling 3 or 4, and you'll be able to get off Infernoid Decatron. So mind games with this deck are really intriguing and really good, so make profit out of that. Also, a reason why I think this deck is not tier 1 material at the moment is because it cannot utilize its most important card. So Void Imagination, if you don't know what it does, all Infernoid monsters you control whose original level are 2 or higher become level 1. So this allows you to put on a massive board of Infernoids because they all turn into level 1, sorry. And all battle damage they inflict to your opponent is halved. So the downside of this card is you won't be able to OTK most likely. This effect is kind of mediocre, but the better effect is this. You can send this card to the graveyard, fusion summon one Infernoid fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or your side of the field as fusion materials, which is okay, but the main reason is this serves as a shadow fusion, because if your opponent controls a monster that was special summoned from the extra deck and you do not, you can also use up to 6 monsters from your deck as fusion materials. And I think that this card, the fact that it's also a continuous card effect, so your opponent can MST it, yeah, I'm not really sure. I think this card will be better once we have Magispectors out or Pendulum Magicians, because they will be utilizing their extra deck all the time. They will special summon their Pendulum monsters that are sent to the extra deck every turn. So then this card will become really, really good. And at this point, when you have Infernoid still lurking around the corner, and some other rogues deck that really don't utilize the extra deck too much, yeah, I think this card is kind of lackluster at the moment, and you won't also be able to use Inferno Tiara to its fullest potential. So what I think you'll need in order to make the Inferno deck tier 1 is Monster Gate at 3. Because then you'll be able to play around with both the Lightsworn engine and Infernoid Decatron and switch them through the side. So yeah, I think this is really, really good and essential for the deck that this card comes at 3. So guys, let me know what you think about the Infernoid deck. What do you think that is going to need this deck to become tier 1? And yeah, we'll talk further in the video description.